Hello, hello. Welcome to the Betaverse. This is BetaCodex Live, episode number, what the heck is it? Number 58. I should know that by now. Hi, I'm Ryan Erickson here with my conversation partner and eminent management exorcist, leadership philosopher. Management exorcist has kind of come off the brand, but leadership philosopher, I've got there. Anyway, your name is Niels Pflaeging. Hi, Niels.
Hi, Ryan.
Salute to you. Hey.
Good to be with you here for the 58th time.
58. Oh my goodness. Wow. It's hard to believe. When we did this, I think May of last year, I think is when we started.
Yes.
It was 2023. Oh my God. I don't remember.
Yes, 23. Yes. Okay, yes. It was the year before last year. Yes, of course, because we just passed New Year again. But a year and a half ago, a little more than that, we started, and now we are episode 58. Who would have dreamt of that, right? Also, that we would find so many topics to discuss.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Again, it depends. How I know we've learned. I watched some of the older episodes the other day. It was interesting in how the tone and tenor and the vibe has changed a little bit. And there's some interesting surprises.
How did it change in your mind?
Well, I think there's a little bit. I guess there's more formality earlier, a little bit.
Yes, we weren't so close, right? We were a little less close.
Yeah, a little bit less. That happens when you spend enough time as we have, in many different ways. But yeah, and now coming here to this topic, we haven't really talked about relative targets a lot. I mean, we talked about it way back, and then I think we brought it up once more. But again, I didn't go through all 58. But this paper it's really nice to see as a refresh of relative targets. What's it all about, and what has come from the learning over again since 2003, even thinking about it. So
yes.
So would you mind, please? How did this come about? What would you like to say about it, and where would you like to go from here?
Yes, we didn't talk much about relative targets during this podcast series, right? Maybe 3 or 4 sessions that we did about relative targets. Not so much.
Yeah.
Really. And to me, it brings up feelings, which reminds me of a song.
You got feelings. Nothing more than feelings.
So it brings up a lot of feelings. Yes. We are very addicted. We're addicted to music, really, both of us, right? Yes. So it brings up so many memories because, as you mentioned the year 2003. At the time, I began being a director of the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable. So moving beyond fixed targets, budgets, plan-based steering, beyond command and control techniques like cost management, beyond incentives, bonuses, beyond plan actuals, variance reporting. That was the daily business at the time. We talked about it all the time in the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable because it was all geared towards moving beyond command and control approaches to performance management, so to speak. It was also, Beyond Budgeting at the time was also about decentralization that got a little bit under the wheels in the Beyond Budgeting movement, which is why the BetaCodex became a necessity to develop, to move further in the direction of how to decentralize, make these changes, this kind of transformation we had to create the BetaCodex movement. So for me, this is like always writing about relative targets is like Michael J. Fox going back into the past a little bit, and then back to the future again.
Back to the future. And there's an I'm coming home part of that too. I'm trying to think which tune.
It's probably a little bit for you when we talk about stuff that's about Scrum and Agile and so on, right? It's one of the topics that my personal or let's say my professional identity is rooted into, this performance management stuff. we often mentioned this before, but I was a financial controller, a finance guy, a finance manager before I joined the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable, but became a consultant. So it means a lot to me. It's very personal, very sticky, and so on. In my first book, thick one, Beyond Budgeting, Better Budgeting, was about this stuff, relative targets as well. On the other hand, relative targets only became a social technology in its own right in 2021, very recently, 4 years ago, exactly 4 years ago, by the way, January 2021. So that was the moment when I thought, together with Silke Hermann, that we should turn this into a not into a propaganda, but into a proper social technology, a proper approach.
Yeah, approach.
So I published this as a social technology, but back only 4 years ago. But the relative targets was a term already in Beyond Budgeting.
Yeah.
It mostly, back then, we mostly related it to targets, beyond target setting, beyond fixed targets. And today, relative targets is really the whole approach of non-performance management performance systems.
Non-performance management
behind you. Nice that you put it up.
Yes, well, that obviously was very intentional. And one thing, I also want to have the PDF here in the background, just in case we want to go to it.
Yes. So why we are talking about this right now is that I just published a new research paper about relative targets on January the 6th. This year, 2025. So we might be talking about the contents a little bit. And it's called, thanks for showing it. Relative Targets, Patterns in Practice, 12 Real-World Insights from the Application of Rationally Designed and Scientifically Sound Performance Systems. And as you can guess, as anybody can guess from the subtitle, this is opposed to the bollocks bullshit kind of performance systems with incentives and a lot of planning and budgeting, performance appraisal, all this nonsensical stuff that's still perceived normal and as a standard in most organizations. So this is a research that is fresh, that is new, that it's about stuff that Silke and I learned with Red 42. We learned it during our consulting assignments, transformational consulting work of the last 6 years. And it was time to put this together.
And again, this is in the pattern series. So the cell structure patterns, cell structure design patterns, 2 of those, then we have the OpenSpace Beta patterns, and then here, this is, again, bringing, like you said, very literally the patterns in practice. What do you actually do with this stuff?
Yes, it was because and this is why it took me personally, it took me so long to get back to writing a research paper about relative targets. Why did it cost me so much? Because I felt that I wanted to avoid the trap of saying the same things as before over and over again. In 2009, I published another research paper on relative targets, Making Performance Work. That's the title of that paper. It was, I think, research paper number 10 or 11 of the Beyond BetaCodex Network. Okay. And since then, I had published a book on Beyond Budgeting, or 2 books on Beyond Budgeting before, really, 2 or 3 books. And in a way, I thought, well, everything's said about that. Nobody's still too few organizations, too few companies are doing it, but everything's, what else can I say about it? And the things changed now, I think, because now for example, just in the second half of last year, I worked with a software company doing a transformation with OpenSpace Beta and cell structure design and relative targets, all these 3 approaches, the trinity of holy BetaCodex approaches.
The holy trinity of the BetaCodex, yes.
And it worked out very well, and I had the opportunity to work with financial people, accounting, controlling, finance, and so on, and change everything. So that was, in a way, that case, working with that client, a company called Pflaeging here in Germany, software company. That case gave me the opportunity to, reflect, okay, in what sequence do I have to do these things so that it can work out in the 90 days? they had literally, no, it's unfair, literally not. They had almost no real reporting internally.
Wow.
Yeah, no, very little. I mean, very intransparent,
Well, I
very,
mean,
very
minimum.
grubby. From a beta point of view, from a relative targets point of view, it was very, very little. It was bare survival oriented, so not transparent at all, not fast close reporting. So everything had to be changed, and of course, during my consulting work, I always try to get something out of it, research wise, insight wise, to learn. Okay, what's behind this? What I'm encountering? What are the patterns? And so I look back. We look back, Sirk and I, but mostly we look back at the last 6 years of consulting work and thought, okay, what are the patterns that we see? How do they fit together? And how can this be brought about in 90 days? And that was, so when the project came to a close, I thought, okay, let's put this together in a paper and get it out. And I think there's tons of fresh stuff here. If you compare it to the Beyond Budgeting days, it's a whole different language and quality.
Lots of stuff to go in there, and I think in knowing that we only have an hour or so, I thought it very interesting that in the very beginning of the paper, you say, at the risk of oversimplification, that here's the 12 things that one of the 12 things we just discovered. Because recently, when I think about this work, when I think about this body of knowledge, is that each of the approaches has not only a foundation in the 12 core principles, but they each have principles of in and of themselves, and relative targets being no different. So we have the 10 principles of relative targets, the 12 principles of the BetaCodex itself, and then now bringing 12 patterns into that from learning. So in the interest of not oversimplifying, but very simply, let's say maybe what is the most misunderstood thing about relative targets that you come into contact with when you talk about it with folks?
About relative targets. That's an interesting question, right? Because I mean, what I just described before, or what you started to describe, it has been a long journey since 2003. When I joined the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable. The Beyond Budgeting Roundtable had existed since 1998 or 99. I joined 4 years later or so. And at the time, Beyond Budgeting, of course, implied that it was about budgeting and planning. And maybe some other stuff. So that was the misunderstanding of the time that we ran into. That people thought, okay, this is about performance management, this is about planning, this is about budgeting, this is about cost maybe, but it's not about anything else. And it was, Beyond Budgeting was about decentralization, what we now call self-structure design as well. So when over time, since 2003, I started dropping the Beyond Budgeting tagline wording. And I was looking for our work, our transformational consulting work. And so first with others, then with Sirke, and of course with you as well. We were always looking for vocabulary that would be interesting and connecting and attracting people's interest to this, alternative to command and control steering. So when we adopted the term relative targets, of course, the idea was, and it still is, to attract people's attention to the target thing.
Yes.
Targets are, I think, like an evergreen. Any evergreen comes to mind? Something by the Everly Brothers or something like that, It's like a song that you hear on the, I do my crying.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
A timeless classic.
Yeah, or Bob Dylan here, Blowing in the Wind or something. Those are evergreens. You can listen to them, all the time. And targets are like that. And in the arena of management, performance management, leadership,
MBOs, KPIs.
Exactly. And then KPIs are overdone and used for steering, and then they are criticized and banished, supposedly, but no, they live on. And then management by objectives gets dropped at some point in the 2000s or so, but then OKRs, which is just the same garbage reloaded, comes along and it becomes a hit. So targets. performance, winning, expectation. It's an evergreen. It goes in cycles, but it's pretty much there all the time. Targets are very attractive to managing types, So, and when Silke and I thought about, okay, what? I know this is a long answer to your question, right? But this is for context, right?
Yes, for context.
So when Silke and I at a certain point looked at the approaches that we had created OpenSpace Beta for transformation, time box transformation, time box change. Then we had created and articulated cell structure design to make the decentralization, structural power, organizational team structure, cells, and so on more easy to grasp. And we looked at it and we thought, okay, what's missing there? And of course, the performance management side. We don't call it this way. We call it performance systems, but still, as a counterpoint to the cell structure design decentralization thing, cell structure design, social technology, to complement that, we needed something about performance systems, and that is relative targets. So if you ask me, what's the most frequent understanding about relative targets? It's probably that, of course, people who hear it for the first time will think about targets and target setting and compare it maybe with OKRs, which would be on one side would not be a complete understanding of the thing, but still it's related, and it's that's the invitation, to get into it and to look at it. And of course, relative targets, it's much wider than that and much more profound than just targets. It's also about how to run an organization without planning, with continuous preparation, how to run it without cost management, without incentive systems, and so on. And the practicalities of that are also described in the paper. Right, but you invited.
I invited it. It's my fault here, and at the risk of being
That's the beauty of this format, that we can elaborate a little bit on things, and people can move forward, and drop some minutes of it if they want. Yeah.
Well, you know what? And I think in a simple thing, and I do want to get into some of the specifics around the uncommon, the new language of relative targets in and of itself. It requires a little bit of explanation. I think, as we're talking about, and you say it in the paper, relative to what, and relative for whom to what.
Yes.
And the idea also of competition and collaboration. Who are we competing against? What are we competing with? Why is this important? And
what level of competition do we need? What level of competition would be destructive?
And I think when you're talking that, another of those lights flipped off for me. Is that systems, performance systems. It's not the act of managing, performance management. I am the manager of performance, and I'm going to manage your performance, and I'm going to evaluate your performance based on that, and then reward you or punish you based on how you performed. But it's this idea of there's a whole system of how interactions are, what kind of interaction is healthy, and again, we tie this back to the BetaCodex. The core principles is what is fitness, overall fitness, versus mono-maximization, and then how do we think about how do we manage one aspect of that, without having the whole system of how an organism, right, an organization is performing. So, boy, of the many things that it came in here that from from me and over across the pond here doesn't quite get, or maybe I didn't, but it could be maybe a bit of a leap, is this idea of league tables and the internal competition of that in a traditional budgeting environment and a top-down steering and performance management. There's this idea of individual competition, that this is I'm going to get mine, and screw you, or the silos are combating with each other.
Tom against Bill against everybody else.
Tom and Bill, Mary and Parvati and whoever we're
everybody
all
against everybody else. Yes.
And then the whole league tables is kind
Yes.
of a football metaphor, like a what the rest of the world calls football,
Yes.
not we over
Yes.
here. That there are teams in team statistics, which and then we're comparing with teams.
It's a little bit like Moneyball. Have you seen the movie?
I have a couple
I
times.
talked about it yesterday with a client because most people in America must have seen the movie or read the book even, right?
Many, yeah.
And Moneyball is all about winning together. You know, you do not want the ideal heroic player. You want specialists for certain positions or activities. I'm not a baseball. I don't understand anything of baseball. Yeah. So, but I still like the story, and I think it's very useful because they in that story they take the idea of team performance to a whole new level. Only
It's
very thorough understanding of what a team is, how it performs, and what kind of player capabilities you need leads you to that kind of thinking and insight, right? Which was revolutionary at the time.
Ooh, wow! The whole
You do not need the best player of the league. You need a constellation of excellent specialists in a certain way, you know, who have the necessary breadth, but also a depth of mastery. And then you can have a perfect team without having the perfect player. The perfect player is way too expensive. Everybody wants them. That's one of the things, just to remind people of the story, right?
It's important to have skill. It's absolutely important.
Oh yeah, they hired people with skills, but skill sets unique to certain positions that would allow them to win instead of having an overwealth, too much wealth of the same skills in too many players. You know, so brilliant analysis.
Boy, and then boy,
and that's what league tables are about, right? If you can we look at the design hint? Can we use that a little bit? Can you focus the illustration on the top right? League tables are supposed to be physically on the wall. You can use that as well. You can use the slides as well. Use
I can go
whatever you want. Because if for those looking at your image, right? Exactly. You see this peachy thing on the top right, right? The design, and the league table is supposed. No, now you are not showing it anymore. Yes. Yeah. The top right thing with the arrow leading out. Exactly. And the league table is supposed to compare teams in the periphery among each other. Can you show it? Teams in the periphery?
Yeah. Oh,
move the finger a little bit around, but okay, we can get to that.
I feel like I'm the weatherman. I feel like I'm the.
We should have tried this before.
No, we shouldn't have. We do not have.
But anyways, there's the center that doesn't have league tables. The periphery has league tables, or at least one league table. By the way, in the white paper, in the research paper, this is pattern number 11, right? That
I'll bring up the research paper now.
At least one, but one may suffice for the beginning or for a long time even. At least one league table in which you compare the teams in the periphery, and again, not individual players, not individual employees, not people, but team performance. And in the paper, I also explain why probably the best indicator to have this kind of league table. Thank you for showing it. Yes, that's the page. I explain on this page why the cost-income ratio is maybe the ultimate indicator to use for that kind of team comparison.
Oh, okay. And this is again, this is one of the. I had to look at it for a moment. Like we're talking that the cost, the ratio, the smaller the ratio, the better.
It's very confusing at the beginning, right?
Yeah, it takes some effort to understand. Once you do, then some things open up.
And believe me, I have thought about this particular topic. It took me a long time to wrap my head around it as a corporate controller. At the beginning, 2003, but a little later, again and again, I thought, why not just show the profitability, the margin, which is the opposite, right? Can you show the league table at the right? Yeah. Because if you have this first cell here, the best cell here, the best team in this league table, it has 68%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's lower than the last cell, which has 98%. So what does that mean? 68% cost income ratio means that they have a margin of 32%.
Yeah.
Yeah. This first cell, cell F, has 32%, and the last one would have 2%.
Mm-hmm.
So why not go for that, you might ask, right? Why not show the top team with the top margin? But this is better because one of the key questions that every organization should ask itself: do we want to, focus people and teams, maybe, right? Do we want to focus teams on profit and profitability, or do we want to focus them on effectiveness, efficiency, effectiveness? It's much more interesting in the long run. It's much more interesting than maximizing profit, which sounds like stakeholder capitalism bullshit, evil capitalist thing. Of course, this also means that cell F has much more profitability or margin than cell I at the bottom of the league. But the focus here is on relentless improvement of effectiveness, and that's the bigger game, so to speak, on the team level, right? An organization. But all this is explained in the paper, and I hope this will lead to a fresh wave of discussions around league tables and about why not to fix targets, why not to set targets fixed, why not to negotiate these league tables. You never have to negotiate them. You install them, you explain, you socialize why this matters, and you can discuss, why are we even looking at this indicator, this odd indicator, cost income ratio? Why is it good? Why is it the long-term thing? Handelsbanken has worked with this indicator for 53 years now. And without ever changing it or without modifications, all the teams are ranked in this indicator daily, even, but of course mainly monthly. And that's the bigger game, the forever game. Be an effective team, create value for clients, and do that effectively.
And then how you're measuring effectiveness. Again, the cost to income ratio also implies something else that is a new concept, this idea of the team-based profit and loss statement.
Yes.
And that is important, is that you can't have this, well, you have the cost to income ratio, it's kind of the same thing, but there's a financial awareness that, at least in the software development world, is sadly lacking. I think that's one trend that's starting to turn around, is to ensure that all of the team members and all the folks in the ensembles, if you will, are aware of the financial impacts, and that our group of 5, that if we are in contact with the customer, the client, the audience, and generating income, it's important that we know what the costs are of our specific constellation. I think the other, you mentioned that, we also got a comment on that
oh, that's lovely. We have a comment. Good constellation, symphony, jam session. Yes, that's the kind of language that we suggest to use. Of course, you can overdo it. You can. This is not to mean esoteric, but constellation of people simply means we do not look at individual performance in a beta organization. Is a no-go.
It's an antithetical.
Exactly. Antithetical to decentralization. So team-based organizations, what does that? And if you do not want to repeat the term team all the time, what other words are there? And I think ensemble, it's a word that we both, very music inclined, we love. But a team is also a constellation of people producing value with each other, for each other. So those are excellent terms. Of course, they seem odd. It seems odd using these terms at first, but we suggest that in if you want to create a transformation in an organization and the change of principles and concepts, you should also question the language. So this is not about ranking people. This is not about appraisal. This is about gaining consciousness. It's not a valuable term, right? This is about value creation accounting. We use the term P&L in relative targets concept, but we also use the term value creation accounting, which allows it to produce these kind of team-based, cell-based product and loss statements, which is another topic in the paper, by the way, which is, I think, pattern number 9, and transparency is pattern number 2 or 3 in the paper. So you find a lot of this, of the foundations, how to get to this kind of transparency, profit and loss statements for all teams, and ultimately the kind of league table we just talked about. Yeah. Brilliant comment. Thank you. Of course, it sounds funny. There was a smiley in that message, right? It sounds funny when you use this language at first, but our hypothesis, it's a proven thing, is that without adopting this kind of more sophisticated, more conscienceless awareness raising language, you can hardly expect people to be more aware of profitability.
Yeah.
So we have to change the language. We have to change the language patterns. Of course, people can disagree, and we can talk about it. But we believe that it's a thing, right? We have to change the language. The awareness. Thank you. Great content. Great comment.
Yeah, that was from Robert Snyder. LinkedIn doesn't show us their names in StreamYard, so I had to go over and see who it was. So hello, Robert. And this also brings up the idea. So team-based profit and loss, league tables, and also there's something you talk about here that you hadn't talked about before, at least in our conversations, is the ticker.
Yes, that's a really new thing in this paper. It was never. I think it was never ever. I might be wrong, but I think that was never ever idealized in Beyond Budgeting. We found it in no other organization before. That's something that Silke dreamed up. Silke Hermann invented, so to speak, a little tool that Silke invented more than a decade ago in her own company at the time, Insights Group. A daily ticker for everyone. That's, I think, is a key tool that almost all organizations should adopt, a daily ticker for everyone. Yeah. Did you like that when you read it?
I did. And it was just one of those things. Well, what are we talking about? Making sure transparency. I mean, fast close, transparency, open books. Well, what does that look like? What does that look like on a team basis? And
yes, we tried to show it I tried to show it in the paper, by the way. We should add in our conversation that all the pages have visuals like this one here, which shows how a ticker really looks like. But by the way, this client of mine, the last client, okay, this is not really an illustration, but it's there on the right, you see a list of topics, or a list of things that should be eliminated. That's pattern number one. But if you go back to the ticker, this is exactly the format of daily ticker that was implemented at Pratke, and people, every employee at that company daily receives an email with exactly that information. Pretty much in this format. Very much, no, it's the same really, and with these information daily. So people can see from the first day of the month to the last day of the month how they move first towards break even, and then into profitability, and moving beyond, into ever higher profitability to the end of the month. So they know exactly when the company breaks even. Again, this is information for everyone in a company, for the whole company. This is not team-based. So people see daily sales, the daily revenue, amount of daily sales, the daily revenue, and the difference to the month's break-even point. So in order to implement this kind of ticker, you need to have an estimate of where is the break-even, how much, what is our cost level approximately, so that everybody knows once we have a sales revenue of this, then we move into profitability, more or less, of course, this is not exact science, this is an approximation. So depending on an organization's cost base, everybody gets transparency here daily with this. And it's how are we doing and what's happening. For example, if you see huge daily revenue, everybody will ask, what is happening? Or at that company, at some days, last month, I think in December or November, the first month they operated it, there were some days with negative revenue, which indicates that you have some kind of problem. Yes, because you had to, how's it called?
And so here's the other thing. And when that number is used to beat people over the head with, and that you've got someone who's saying, hey, what's, I'm over here, I'm in corporate finance. What are you doing out there in operations? Why are you, what's your problem? And that someone else is using that number to point out at someone and to cause fear, I guess. So the pardon?
With the ticker, you mean?
Yeah. Well, not the ticker, but I think daily financial reporting or daily reporting can be used as a method of control.
How?
And well, if let's say a manager and a team is using a daily performance metric, hey, how are you doing? How are you doing? How are you doing? An individual performance metric.
Okay.
That's not what this is.
But
This
there's a
is
misunderstanding, maybe a misunderstanding, or you want to hint at the difference between this ticker and what you are just saying. This ticker
yes.
is for everyone, and always it must be for the whole company. So this is
Yes.
not about team performance, not about an individual performance. This is a tool of transparency, and it's a tool to raise awareness about the organizations, the companies overall. It could be for a huge business unit as well. It doesn't have to be for the company. If you have $1 billion company, you could have a ticker for 3 business units or whatever, But the idea here is not. This is for transparency and awareness. It is not at all a tool of control. What I see happening at the companies that have implemented this ticker is that people become more curious about, okay, why haven't we invoiced anything today? Or why do we have negative revenue on that day? Or where does this massive revenue come from? Let me look at the details. Let's look into the system. That's what people do, Or they say, well, last month we broke even on the 19th. This month we break even on the 25th or 28th of the month. What's wrong with us? And also, of course, at the end of the month, everybody knows if the company was profitable, approximately how profitable it was. So it gives people a lot of information, but it doesn't do anything to assign blaming. Of course, assholes can do asshole behavior, always. This tool will not keep people assholes from being assholes, but it will not produce assholey behavior. Assholey, that sounds obvious.
Right? I think the point I was trying to make is that with the awareness and enforced awareness, enforced awareness. That's different than
what is that? Maybe I do not know it. What's enforced awareness? What's that?
Well, no, I mean that's actually I hadn't heard that. That sound like interesting. Like I'm making sure that I am ensuring that you are aware of this because I'm going to hold you accountable for that. That would be I'm enforcing that on you, or forcing it upon you.
But that's the same, a little bit like in our societies. In America where you live, or in Germany where I currently reside, you don't get away with murder usually. And if you say, Mr. Judge, Miss Judge, Madam Judge, I wasn't aware that murder is against the law. I was just, shooting this man or woman, then the judge will say, well, it is your duty as a citizen to obey to the law, whether you know it or not. And the same goes for organizations. Yeah, the idea behind this ticket, it's a beautiful thing, a comment that you made. It's a very important point. Yeah. The idea of the ticker is to make everybody aware of something that is glaringly important for any organization: revenue, profitability. How does this work? How does the month, and to give people a feeling over time? Because remember, this is a daily ticker. It will go on forever, every day of the year, every business day. All years, it will go on forever. It will give people a perception of the economic reality. And it's very important that people understand the economic realities of their organizations. Does that sometimes create, can it create, especially at the beginning, some I'm a software developer, I do not want to see the numbers, I just want to code, leave me alone with that consciousness, financial, economic stuff. I just want to I want to sit in front of my
I do my thing, you do your thing, never the twain shall meet kind of thing.
Yeah, the idea is that everybody deserves this kind of financial transparency, period. This is not a command control tool, not at all. It doesn't have the characteristics.
No.
Does that make sense, even, Ryan? We
Yeah,
don't have
yeah.
to
Well,
read them. If you feel
no. It doesn't make sense. I think the idea is that when there's this esprit de corps, when there's the teams working together to achieve this, here's how the system is doing, here's how this entire system is doing, and and you mentioned the curiosity, and then if I am a citizen of this organization, right, I give a shit. And I want to understand what's going on. And in order to understand where to focus, you do need these kinds of pieces of information. I think what is, again, the whole idea. I think at the very beginning, the use of budgets for steering, the use of budgets for comparison of individuals and whether at high levels, I think that's we're talking about the tool of we said in like episode 3 or whatever, it's the tyranny of fixed targets.
And in this paper, pattern number 1, you can show it again if you like, it is exactly about abolishing this kind of stuff. Yeah. So the first step of adopting relative targets performance system is eliminating the nonsense, which is fixed targets. No, that's the last. Yeah, okay, but we can read the title. Yeah, first here, the first line. But okay, yeah.
I'm gonna go to number 1.
Scrap budgeting, eliminate fixed targets, and tone down forecasting. These are straightforward flips within any beta transformation, interventions flips within any beta transformation. So first thing to do to adopt relative targets is to drop the shit, And then if you go to the second pattern, or the third, the third. Here we go. Here's the ticker already. So the idea is to drop the bullshit, but immediately to create higher levels of transparency, among other things, through the ticker. Also through a different kind of monthly reporting. Those are patterns 4, 5, 6, I think. And so the idea is to, and the backdrop of this paper again is that organizational transformation within 90 days is possible. How it is possible, that's pattern 2. And if you want to unleash people's consciousness and responsibility and autonomy, team autonomy, and so on, then of course you need the instruments to take on this responsibility. That's why you need team or cell P&Ls, league tables, and so on. But you also have to drop things like budgeting, fixed plans, incentives, and overdoses of forecasting and so on. So all of this goes hand in hand, yes? The ticker is not a standalone. Of course, any organization should have a ticker, in my mind, yes?
Yeah.
Any organization should adopt a ticker. If there's one great idea for every organization that's in this paper, that's easy to adopt, every organization should have a daily ticker, just the way it is described here. It's an amazing instrument that's invented here. However, in our work, this is embedded in a larger picture, in the bigger picture of, okay, how to raise transparency beyond financial transparency, profit and loss transparency, without, on a daily basis even. And the ticker is beautiful.
Regular, that there's no pressure implied, there's no coercion implied with that. It's just
great song about that. That's not the song I mentioned.
Pressure. Oh, you're thinking
Pressure by Billy Joel, but also there's Pressure Down by John Farnham from Australia. Take the pressure down, cause I can feel it. We're rising like a storm.
So you're not the first person who's mentioned John Farnham, and I have to say I haven't.
John Farnham is amazing. He did this.
Yes.
It was one of the best albums of the 1980s, 1986, I suppose. It's called something with Jack, Standing Jack. It's a beautiful album, and it had this amazing song "Pressure Down," but also this kind of Australian liberty song. What was it called? The biggest hit on that album. Oh, it's fantastic.
Oh, we have to have our separate music podcast going. So,
Whispering Jack is the name of the album, by the way.
Whispering Jack.
And the track that I'm talking about is called "You're the Voice." Oh, You're the voice. And of course, there's Pressure Down. That's the first song on the album. Just to complete. Sorry.
Just to get that okay. Well, again, we're in music mode. In the time we have here, we've talked through a lot of the patterns. I want to make this bigger, but there are 12 of them here.
Yes, this is like the overview page at the end of this paper that shows the title, so to speak, of the 12 patterns. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is something, this is like, I will let's say, humorously call this the performance management agenda for every organization in 2025. Right. This is what you have to do. Come on, do it. Yes. Did you want to comment on it, Ryan?
No, that was the mic drop moment, right? That was
exactly.
This is you want to know how to do it. So here again, looking through this in the 12 patterns, which is the new part of the paper again. I certainly want to talk about the 10 principles again at some point too, because a lot of the topics that we've talked about key into that, and performance is such a huge topic. But so we didn't talk about OpenSpace Beta. We talked about that before. Fast close and open books. Do it early, right? And so normally the books get closed halfway through the month for me, or like the first week of the month. You're talking something radically different. And how does that happen? How can that? I mean, this is the thing. How can we live without budgets? How can we close in a day? How can that happen?
Yes. Yes. This was one of the things that astonished me a bit while writing this paper, because this fast close idea, I think we already talked about this in the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable. Occasionally, we didn't highlight it very much, if I remember well. But I wrote about it in my first couple of books that I wrote on the subject. And now when I started writing this white paper, of course, I went back to researching, okay, where has the world moved to with regards to fast close? So I Googled it, looked it up a little bit, researched it a little bit online. And the thing is, nowhere. Fast close almost isn't a thing, which I think proves what kind of mess the world of accounting and organizations and managers are in, and the executive side. They are blindsided because they do not have fast close. Here's what fast close is. Fast close means closing the books monthly, always on the first day of the following month or the second day max of the following month. So today is this is January. It's not a good example because January is a little bit special, right? Usually it's annual closing. There's a holiday on the first, but usually in February, for example, if the first of February is a business day, usually a company should close the books, do the monthly closing, finish the monthly closing, and finalize the monthly reporting for January on the first of that day, the second day of February, the least. Right? So fast close means closing the books for the month before on the first or the second business day of the following month. Very simple principle, right? Why is that important? Why is it part of this paper? Why are we even talking about it? Because if you have a sloppy company, if you have sloppy accounting, sloppy bookkeeping, sloppy reporting, people will never see their numbers. Only on the 15th of the month or the 20th or never. Fast close guarantees that everybody knows reliably on the 2nd of every month, there is a new report that shows us, our team performance, the team P&L, and the whole all numbers of the whole organization. That's a fast close.
By that time, the numbers are irrelevant. And
exactly.
if you're waiting,
it's like the previous day's newspaper.
You're looking back and trying to explain and predict. We're trying to predict tomorrow based on information that's no longer even relevant. If again 2 weeks old, and
it's not reliable. If you cannot, as a team, expect to see the numbers quick, if they might come on the 5th of the following month, or maybe never, or the 25th, then you can never. How can you reflect? How can you even? How can you
prepare? how can you prepare if
Exactly.
you have the day? So we close, then we got the ticker. We close, we have a daily ticker.
No,
Close,
the
we got
ticker is daily. Ticker every day.
no, I
Closing
mean,
reliable on the second or the first of the previous.
right. I
Ticker is like
I was putting
it's
it together.
perception.
The
Ticker
tickers
gives you an a perception of evolution of the business.
and
Monthly
it
closing gives you an idea of the full amount, the full picture. The big
well, and
picture.
this is also we talked about here. One of the, is trends to that having trends is one of the
Yes.
other principles here. I want
Yes.
to get there. Which one was that?
Trend
Yes.
reporting is enormously important for any organization, really, but for beta organizations especially. Instead of comparing things versus the budget or planned numbers or forecasts or whatever sloppy stuff organizations do, you force people, everybody, managers and teams alike, to look at trends. And I give two examples of trend reporting on the right side, visually, but on the left, I explain. This is really also, I think, something the world hasn't evolved. I'm an old guy. We are both old guys, right? Already,
Yep.
Ryan. So
Thanks for that, by the way.
we've been working for, in my case, 25 years of professional
Yep.
of
Me too.
work. Let's say work life. So one tends to already at our age. I'm 53. Sometimes we look back and see, okay, this has changed a lot, or some other things haven't changed a lot. And what hasn't changed is the consciousness of that. This kind of reporting is what really works, make people aware of trends of performance over time and how it goes up or down. These are two, by the way, the fun thing is on the upper right, you see two trends. These are both cost numbers. One is going up and the other going down. And both are bad, by the way. I do not say what numbers these are in detail. Yeah, that graphic. But it should be the other way around. The blue line should go up, down, and the orange one should go up because it's kind of an investment into the future thing. Nobody needs to know what that is, but this is from a real company case. And this is a typical trend report with 36 actual months, So the line has 36 data points. The last month, now it would be December 24, it's shown on the right, and then it goes back 36 months to the left, right? So every month people will see this trend, the actual numbers, and then the trend line, which is added to this, or the two trend lines in this case, an orange and a green one, or blue one, to make it more complete. So people always will see the last month to the right, and the previous month, and the whole trend over 3 years, right? 36 months in this case. So this gives you a huge amount of information. How steadily are we doing this? Where is it going? Is it decreasing, increasing? Is this good or bad? A good indicator should raise questions and not give answers, and that's why trend reporting is so useful, because it refuses to give silly and wrong answers. It raises the right kind of questions and debate. Yes, that's the idea. Trend reporting, I think, is a huge pattern. That's why it is highlighted in this paper. I think it's very, especially once you abolish fixed targets and budgets and allocations and cost management, this becomes the key tool, because you will look at trends for cost information and sales information and overall profitability and specific indicators and problems that you have. Yeah.
And when you're liberated from the plan to actual variance,
yes, totally. Yes.
Then you can actually pay attention to the trends. And I think one of the now these charts, if someone has come from a Scrum Master background, Agile software development background, they'll recognize the ideas of these trend lines and the trends charts in terms of looking at yesterday's weather and story point. Well, the story point's a different thing, but how much work is getting done over time. I mean, it's important to be aware of
trend reporting on that as well. Or in production, you can have weekly trends as well in certain areas of software development, or for every sprint or so. Or in a production environment, you can of course have trend reporting, different kinds of trend reporting. Not everything is shown here in this paper, but you can, in a production environment, you can have these distribution or variation reporting kind of things with daily numbers. or actual individual interactions, and you can map them. So trend reporting can have all kinds of shapes or forms. Here it is a monthly kind of trend reporting because this is it was taken from a finance report where the monthly closing is enough, as an information source.
Yes. So and we're here 55 minutes and we haven't even talked about relative pay or anything like that. So I was going to bring that one up here.
Relative targets also as relative targets is so it has a huge scope, right? Which goes even into pay systems. So yes, I think there are two patterns about pay systems in this paper.
Yeah.
8 and number 12, not sure.
Yeah.
Yes, this is about variable pay and how to make it fix.
Yeah. Where's in value creation, you're changing the whole accounting system. So now you have 5 minutes to explain the change to an entire accounting system. Go. Yeah. Sorry.
Yes. No, I think we already in a way talked about this, but this is an approach we found at companies like Handelsbanken in evaluation, but this particular way of showing the profit and loss and calling it and framing profit and loss statements on a team level, which we call value creation accounting, it is directly inspired by the system that DM Drogeriemarkt, a German pharmaceutical company with approximately 70,000 people in all over Europe, they developed this kind of concept, this structure of a value creation report, or you could say a cell P&L. Yeah, and the beauty in this system is that it changes the way of framing profit and loss totally, in that it categorizes what we usually call cost into different value categories, and they're all variable. There are third-party contributions, stuff that you buy from externally. There are contributions by other teams within the organization, center cells in our language, and the team's contributions itself. And if you look at, for example, salaries, team salaries, you find them here as employee income. It's not even called team salary or people salary or personnel cost. It's called employee income, which is something good, of course, because the salaries a company pays to people is not a bad thing that shall be reduced. It's value created for employees. Yes. So this is a big thing, something that we will surely publish more about in the future.
Yeah. I mean,
it's not a feeble concept. It's not a slimy little idea. This is a well-formed concept that companies like Handelsbanken and especially DM Drogeriemarkt, or even Borzag is using this kind of model, of course. But not the same language, maybe. Yeah.
Right, but to me, something like this at the team level, it bridges the gap between you have to know what balance statement you have to know all these other so this is maybe a financial person who wants to keep their job and doing whatever wherever and not really taking the care for the human beings on the teams and the system to say here's what your contribution means in words that make sense and in a decentralized environment, and I'm pointing at my own screen here and you can't see me pointing here.
No, it's good. You did that good. This is like company organizational finances or team finances for everyone in a language that is not accounting based, because this is one of the great insights behind this concept. Again, we took this from DM Drogeriemarkt. This is pretty much a straight translation for the value creation accounting statements that they use at DM Drogeriemarkt. Yeah, and it reframes financial or accounting notions in a way that it makes sense on a daily basis for every team, on a monthly basis, at least for every team. And that it gives you the relevant insight. What do we buy from the outside of the company? What do we buy from other teams or cells? And what is our own, consumption and contribution and value creation, of which profit is then a part, right? And the total here at the top line is the total value creation is the team revenue. Yeah. So you have it doesn't look like a profit and loss statement from conventional accounting. That's why we call it value creation accounting. It is a different way of looking at accounting in a value creation oriented way. And this huge thing, I think By the way, over the last couple of weeks, I bought a lot of books about lean accounting, and I found them all conceptually too feeble, too technocratic, too bureaucratic, too complicated. This is really an alternative that people in the finance arena and performance management, managers and also controllers, but also everybody, consultants should really look at and learn about. This is a very fresh approach. Remect has done it since 1991 in this way.
Wow!
Right, and it's a very successful company. So worth looking at.
Worth looking at, absolutely. We don't. So I'll bring up the 12 again, and just to kind of tease folks about this, that
yes,
there's so much
as usual, we cannot talk in an episode like this of our podcast. We cannot talk about. The aim is not repeating the paper, right? The aim is to talk about some patterns that we think are interesting, might be interesting to discuss. We want to invite people to read the paper, or to read it again, or to understand the interconnections between the patterns and the context of it all. It's not to repeat what's written there, right? And the paper is for free download. Maybe we should say out loud where to find them.
Well, lucky that we
the link is betacodex.org /papers. Yes.
The white paper. I didn't have that one here in my banner. Sorry. But we do. You go to betacodex.org, and the white paper should be very easily found from there.
Yes, there is a tab called Research Papers. You click on it.
Yeah.
All our research papers, including this last one, which is number 22. Yeah, the latest one.
22.
That's good. Yes, here we have the link, betacodex.org. There you find all our papers for free download without registration. There is no commercial thing to it. Yes. Yeah. Yes, this is, I think, I hope we gave people a lot to think about with regards to performance systems and how to achieve organizational transformation, decentralization, team empowerment.
Yeah. My head's, I knew my head would be spinning by the end of this, and not just because it's 7 o'clock in the morning now and we've been doing this for an hour. But having a performance system that is fit for humanity, fit for people, instead of fit for controlling others in that power over way. Wow.
By the way, I should also mention the website www.relativetargets.com. That's where you can find all kinds of resources and the open source license of the relative targets approach. And the poster that's behind you, Ryan, you can buy this from the Red 42 web shop as well. So that's a product directly related to relative targets. So anybody can download the concept overview from the website, and people can also buy the poster if they like. Yeah, I'm currently writing a book about relative targets. It's not yet done, but that will come too.
Yes.
And plenty of videos, plenty of documents and articles about the topic already.
Yes, and who knows, we may be talking about this again. Probably each of the 12 episodes, do a little bit of research. We could go into that. We probably have in some way or another, because everything is connected here. This is I owe this to my friend Marcella, who reminded me that there's a Douglas Adams book. I think it was Dirk Gently's
Holistic Agency. I love that book.
Yes,
there's a TV show, two season TV show on Netflix, I think. Dirk Gently's Holistic Agency. I love those books. Yeah, everything's interconnected.
Everything's connected. All righty. Well, I wish I knew that. I keep thinking of that song that used to end the Carol Burnett show. Something about that. Thank you for the time we had together. But I don't have the
music. The love we're bringing. That could be another ending song. Yeah, this was lovely. Thank you very much. Thanks for talking with me about this latest research, Ryan.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And next week, and certainly, we plan to have a special guest, someone who I met recently, who's become a friend of mine, Dave Fearon, we're going to be talking about educating for complexity, or educate for complexity in addition. So I think something we hinted at before. So tune in next week for that. Again, thank you, Niels, for being here, and thank all of you out there for the precious gift of your time and attention. And thank you especially to the Intuitive Network and Megan Elizabeth Morris for providing us StreamYard so we can actually send this out into the world. So with that, we'll see you at some point next week, I think. So.